The daily reality for the Iranian opposition involves stepping into the street against a fully armed security apparatus. They absorb the physical costs of challenging an entrenched state. Early in this struggle, there is a strong temptation to look upward for a solution. The street hopes that foreign military pressure from the United States or Israel will strike critical infrastructure, weaken the security forces, and cripple the regime's leadership from the outside. Relying entirely on outside intervention creates a trap. Foreign powers operate on their own political parameters. They prioritize their own domestic and geopolitical calculations, which do not automatically align with the Iranian street's goal of total regime collapse. From Washington's perspective, an abrupt, unmanaged collapse of the Iranian government carries massive risk. International administrations often fear a chaotic power vacuum, a scenario resembling the prolonged instability in Venezuela, more than they desire immediate regime change. Foreign missile strikes or economic sanctions can crack the regime's armor and weaken its logistical capacity. However, these tools are never engineered to deliver the final blow. The population must reclaim absolute agency over the outcome. Within the resistance, there is a recurring expectation that a definitive final call to action will be broadcast by opposition figures like Prince Reza Pahlavi. An opposition leader cannot simply order millions of people into the crosshairs of a military. The street must first demonstrate it has the tactical capability to hold physical ground while keeping its casualty rate low. The traditional concept of a revolution usually involves a massive, coordinated, single-day clash against the full weight of the state. Against a heavily armed adversary, that approach is fatal. Success requires a sustained campaign of calculated, urban attrition. The required prerequisite is decentralized territorial capture. It requires breaking the sprawling map of the city into highly localized, manageable pieces. Mastering the microgeography of the city, block by block, produces the leverage necessary to challenge the state's control. This animated map illustrates the traditionally flawed protest strategy. Masses of citizens leave their own neighborhoods and march directly into large, highly visible government squares. Consolidating everyone into a single location creates a massive red zone. It gives the state an easy, static target. The regime can surround the perimeter, concentrate its security forces, and efficiently neutralize the movement. The asymmetrical alternative uses decentralized cultural events as a Trojan horse. By utilizing Chahar Shande-Sili, the ancient Persian festival of fire held before the new year, citizens have a built-in cover to gather, light fires, and capture low-risk geography without triggering an immediate, massive military response. Rule 1 of this tactic is strict avoidance. Citizens must completely bypass the major squares and intersections where the regime parks its armored anti-riot vehicles. Ignoring the enemy's strongest positions leaves the state's heavy weaponry and centralized command structure idle. Returning to the map, Rule 2 dictates a shift to green zones. Instead of attacking the center, the population disperses into familiar, localized residential neighborhoods far from government hubs. This strategy is highly fluid. If a citizen steps out and sees their immediate block is heavily policed, they do not fight. They dynamically relocate to a safer district currently held by their allies. Notice the layout here. Zooming in on a single captured green zone reveals the 4 main highway arteries feeding into the neighborhood from the outside. Holding these intersections creates a severe logistical failure. Localized civilian crowds place physical blockades at these exact choke points. The state's security apparatus, which relies on these routes to deploy reinforcements, becomes trapped in traffic. They physically cannot enter the zone. Territorial capture succeeds by paralyzing the state's logistical ability to move its troops, rendering symbolic government buildings secondary targets. When you apply this highly localized tactic simultaneously across an entire sprawling metropolis like Tehran, the macro impact becomes impossible for the state to manage. A centralized military force can easily roll into and clear one rebellious neighborhood by morning. They mathematically lack the vehicles and the manpower to clear 50 scattered neighborhoods at exactly the same time. This creates structural exhaustion. Continuous, decentralized pressure across dozens of districts forces the regime into constant, panicked redeployments, draining their fuel, tiring their troops, and eventually shattering their command structure. Time, physical scale, and the sheer exhaustion of the opponent serve as the ultimate weapons for an unarmed street facing a military apparatus. This street-level mathematical advantage feeds directly back into the macro-level geopolitical forces. Only after these rolling, decentralized street tests prove successful do the actual conditions for a nationwide revolution materialize. The population sees that the resistance is survivable. This undeniable display of sustained physical control over the geography forces a reaction. It provides both hesitant foreign administrations and opposition leadership the hard evidence they need to openly commit their resources to a final push against the regime. A population cannot outsource its liberation to foreign drones or waiting presidents. It has to manufacture its own leverage on the ground. The calculated, collective capture of the street from below provides the only viable path to total regime change.